When it comes to retro gaming, I am a traditionalist in regards to controllers. I prefer the original NES pad for that console, Sega's 6-button arcade pad for the Genesis. The original Saturn controller is unmatched. I think you get the point here. When I play on a retro system, I almost always want the product designed by the company that actually created the hardware. There are a few notable exceptions, however. I am on record as a firm and unashamed hater of the Sega Dreamcast controller. There is not a single thing I like about this design, from the wire at the bottom to the shape to the ridiculously useless directional pad, and of course, the 4-button face at a time when two-dimensional fighters were still very much a part of the hobby. Even back then, I searched for alternatives to replace this controller, often having to settle for an arcade stick that wasn't always convenient. As the years went on, I did start to find more options, and then eventually some adapters that finally opened the Dreamcast up to some fantastic choices. For a while there, I was using the Retro Fighters Wireless StrikerDC as my daily driver, as it provided a feel and form factor that mostly got the job done for all types of gaming. When Retro Fighters announced the D6 wireless gamepad, I was all kinds of excited. This thing looked like it had a Saturn-style directional pad, a 6-button face, and a mold that looked extremely comfortable. They sent me one over to have a look at, so I decided to do a quick video to give you an idea if this thing is worth your hard-earned money. Let's get right to it. Let's go over some bullet points of the device before we do anything else. The D6 is a 2.4 GHz wireless device with a built-in rechargeable battery that uses USB-C. It officially supports the Sega Dreamcast, the PC, and the Nintendo Switch. In order to accomplish that, it comes with two receivers. The first is a USB receiver for the PC and Switch, while the second is a specialized dongle made just for the Dreamcast that has built-in support for VMU memory devices. If you own or have experience with the wireless StrikerDC pad, you have seen this one before. The D6 design features a 6-button face, shoulder buttons, a switch for directional pad and left-right analog use, and the entire directional pad is powered by micro switches, similar to the Neo Geo CD pad. The overall shape puts you in mind of the ASCII Pad FT, though it's quite a bit smaller. Should you use this on a Dreamcast, the C and Z buttons on the face mirror the L and R buttons on the shoulders. On the PC and Switch, they mirror their own dedicated buttons for those platforms. It's available in both white and black and retails for $50. Anyone interested in a pad like this almost certainly wants it for fighting games and or 2D games in general. Since there is no analog stick on it like the StrikerDC, its use in anything more than that becomes a bit troublesome, especially when you factor in the wide variety of software for the Switch and PC that will almost certainly use the analog stick for a necessary gameplay element. That said, I decided to take a look at a number of popular 2D games for the Dreamcast and Switch and see how this controller performed. The results were quite interesting. Firing up one of my favorites, we go right into Street Fighter Alpha 3 for the Dreamcast. And boy did I have issues. I missed at least 60% or more of everything I tried. I'm usually a beast when it comes to whipping out fireballs and dragon punches, but I was missing so often I thought something was wrong. I was genuinely frustrated to the point where I stopped playing to repair the receiver back to the pad because I felt things were off so badly. But nothing changed. I was still missing so often it was ridiculous. At first I didn't consider the micro switches in the directional pad because I was familiar with the Neo Geo CD controller and have no trouble pulling off my special moves and supers there. But I guess the micro switches in those two pads must be different because that's definitely the issue. The D6 directional pad may look like it was transplanted from a Sega Saturn, but the similarities are purely visual. The way this pad works and feels comes with a hefty learning curve, and you'll need some practice under your belt to feel it out. You'll find your movements will become much more deliberate as you adjust to this, and that means slowing down enough that it affects your timing everywhere. As you get a feel for the switches, you will begin to speed back up again, and things do start to improve. My quarter circle and fireball motions really improved after a few hours and approached something akin to my normal accuracy. However, try as I might, I still had loads of issues with half circle style special moves, particularly having to do 2 of them quickly for super combos. For instance, Akuma here has a projectile super combo that is 2 consecutive half circle motions in reverse. I was simply missing this at an astonishing rate no matter how much I practiced. I was lucky to get it off 1 out of 5 tries. It was infuriating to say the least. Moving away from fighting games, I decided to try out the Switch compatibility across a number of 2D titles from the Sega Ages line. The D6 performed flawlessly in these applications, and I loved it in games like Sonic, Shinobi, Game Ground, and Thunder Force AC. These titles all controlled well with no perceptible lag to speak of, nor any of the issues I faced in the fighting games I tried. When it came to running, jumping, firing your weapons, controlling your ship, or letting loose some ninja magic, the D6 was a force to be reckoned with among your many control pad options. The USB controller was easy to pair with just a push of 2 buttons. I also fired up Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection, and again, I had the same issues I did in the Dreamcast fighting games I tried. I mostly adjusted to the quarter circle and Dragon Punch movements, but any directional pad related specials and supers that wanted half circle or full circle movements were terribly inaccurate. The directional pad on the D6 fought me tooth and nail in this regard, and no fighting game was spared. I just could not find a rhythm with it. The build quality and design of the D6 must be commended. This little guy is tight, well made, and has a button layout that is perfect for the vast majority of 2D games across the 3 major platforms it officially supports. I think if you primarily use it for platformers, running guns, beat 'em ups, or shoot 'em ups, it will be a fine choice and easily rivals 8BitDo's M30 in overall appeal and functionality. Where things begin to falter a bit is in its fighting game performance. Along with that micro switch latent directional pad comes a big learning curve. Even once you adjust, it's problematic for some of the more intricate movements, and accuracy does suffer. This of course could mainly be an issue on my end as a gamer. I just couldn't get a feel for it. I will say this however, I have experience with hundreds of controllers over the years, and if I can't adjust to it fully, I guarantee many of you will have trouble as well. After all, I'm the type of guy that could beat Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo on the hardest setting on the 3DO flawlessly with that system's awful 3-button pad. As far as latency or lag, I can confirm Retro Fighter's claims that this device has no issues in that area. I had no trouble in any of the games I tried. The Dreamcast dongle also read the different VMUs I threw at it with no issues whatsoever. They worked as they should and read my save games in every instance. That ultimately leaves me with a bittersweet recommendation. The D6 is a worthy addition to your arsenal if you intend on playing the many two-dimensional genres that exist outside of fighting games, but I cannot in good faith extend that to fighting games themselves. Don't get me wrong, it works, and some of you may indeed put in the time to overcome its massive learning curve, but I also feel many among you will not, and you'll be left like me with a fighting game controller you don't want to use with fighting games. I love the idea behind this product, but the execution is simply lacking when compared to a traditional contact pad design. Perhaps a version 2.0 with a traditional directional pad, like the Sega Saturn, will right this ship and finally give Dreamcast fans the controller they deserve at an affordable price. I'm Sega Lord X. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.